Abyssal Murmurs. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next horror stories. Story 1. Camping trip with school and girl in black dress. Our school conducted a camping trip, and so I joined it for the sake of my grades. Camping started 8:00 a.m. at the school's covered court, and I arrived early. No one was there, just me and the school guard. I'm bored, so I just read books. Gadgets were not allowed, and I suddenly heard footsteps behind me, so I turned back and nothing was there. I turned to the front and was frightened of what I saw. A girl on a black dress sitting like a frog on the floor, and her body was filled with black blood. I was scared of it, so I ran away into the guardhouse. I told the guard about it. He left me alone in the guardhouse and checked it out. He came back, but said he saw nothing. I'm very sure of what I saw. After a couple of minutes, my campmates and our camp leader, I told them what happened, but they just laughed at me. At night, we're preparing our tent beside on our school's field. I felt uneasy. I felt like someone was watching us, and my campmates feel it too. Suddenly, our camp leader's dog barked. It barked towards the old mango tree for a mysterious reason. Everybody felt creeped, so we quickly got inside our tents. My tent is wide, so I slept with my best friend. Our camp leader lit the torches on because some of us were afraid of dark, and suddenly I heard again footsteps, but this time it cried too. Everybody heard it. A very strong wind blew off the torches, and the dog barks again. The mysterious lost spirit continued crying while walking around our tents. All of us were scared that time, and some of us were crying because we were scared. And some of our things got lost, and the cry of the spirit changed into laughter. The whole field was filled with a loud laugh. We're now so scared and panicked. So our camp leader decided to move on the covered court, and we quickly packed our things and ran fast to the covered court. When we were there, we prayed until it stopped, and by the next morning, my best friend and I found the lost things below on the old mango tree. We quickly got the lost things and gave it to the owners. We quickly went home. We didn't tell about it to others, even on our parents. We just forget it, like a bad nightmare, except this time, except to you. My theory is that the girl that I saw was the spirit who disturbed us. It disturbed us because we disturbed her too. I think that the spirit lives in the old mango tree, and that's why the dog barks toward the tree. The dog could see or smell the spirit. Dogs and cats or other animals are believed to see things we can't see. Story 2. Visitor. Please allow me to share just a brief childhood story of what happened to my sister. It was on March 1999 when I was living my parents and other siblings. It was on that faithful day. My sister was in the house alone. My other 2 siblings went to school. There were 4 siblings, 2 girls and 2 boys. On that day, my mom and dad traveled out and later in the evening picked us up from school. My sister was alone in the house, and she was in the kitchen. Mind you, the main entrance of the house and other doors were locked. She was in the kitchen cooking. My mom immediately appeared out of nowhere in the kitchen with her, and she was scared a little bit. She asked, "Mom, I thought you traveled out with Dad?" Mom replied, "Yes, but we didn't make it due to the meeting that had been shifted for tomorrow." She sister asked, "But where is Dad? Didn't he return with you?" Mom replied, "Yes, he returned, but he went out with his friends. Later this evening he'll come back home. Are you scared of seeing me?" Mom asked my sister. No. Although a little bit scared, it's just that I saw you suddenly, not expectedly. This happened 4 hours after we, my other siblings, Mom, Dad, and I, left the house. My sister did not think much of it. Mind you again that all the doors were locked inside by her. Mom was with her in the house, chatting and having fun together. Later in the evening, Mom excused herself to use the bathroom. Within 5 minutes, my sister heard a knock at the door, so she went to open the door. Upon opening the door, she saw us, other siblings, Mom, Dad, and me. She stood like a statue looking at us with an expression on her face, acting like she saw ghosts. She turned to Mom and asked, "Were you not the one with me since morning, and you told me that the meeting was canceled, and you and Dad couldn't travel?" We stood there at the main entrance door of the house again, looking at her. "Mom, how did you meet up with Dad and my siblings? Were we not together in this house? And how did you manage to leave the house while the door was closed inside? You told me that you were going to the bathroom, but now you're outside with Dad and my siblings?" My sister asked. Mom, these words from my sister sent shivers upon shivers in us and scared the heck out of us. My siblings, Dad, Mom, and me. "What did you eat and drink today? I'm sure you have not taken those drinks in the cupboard and smoked some week," my dad asked. "Maybe she woke up from bad dreams," I explained to them. We entered the house, thinking she had gotten drunk. You guys can't understand what I'm saying. She got angry at us for not believing her. She looked at Mom and asked, "Mom, tell me you were not together in the house today." "Name. Didn't we tell you we were traveling? Why are you asking me stupid questions? In fact, I was with you, Dad, at the meeting throughout today. And after the meeting, we headed to your siblings' school, picked them up, and came home together. It is just now I'm coming home with your dad. I was not home with you. Maybe, according to what your brother, me, said might be true. You woke up from a bad dream, or you imagined I was home with you," my mom explained. "But who was with me today? I think she is in the bathroom. Let me check on her," my sister said. "Wait a few minutes." "Who is in the bathroom?" Dad asked. "The one who was with me today," my sister replied. "My dad told me to go inside with my other 2 siblings to our room. My other 2 siblings were too small. My big sister was 21. I was 10, and my other siblings were 4, 6 years old. He went with my sister and Mom to the bathroom. Upon reaching there, nobody was in the bathroom. Are you cracking jokes with me and your mom? We came back from a long journey, and you don't want us to rest?" My dad asked in rage with an angry face. "But Dad, we ate together. The plates are in the kitchen," my sister tried to explain, but with caution. This unbelievable story of my sister ends right there because my dad told her not to say it again. I'm the only one that understood my sister because I was gifted with a psychic ability to hear and understand feelings and also sense things. I know that a ghost impersonated itself as my mom. We are Christian, and it's taboo to call a medium or shaman to know exactly what happened to my sister that day. Nobody believed her encounter that day except me, that has an ability in me that believes everything she says. I went to the astral world to know exactly what happened to my sister. Later, I found out that the one that visited my sister was the former wife of my dad that impersonated herself as my mom. She wanted a chance to stick herself inside our life. Story 3. Funeral Home Story. Based on a true story that took place in a funeral home on Chestnut and Olive in Fresno. It was a shaman funeral I went to. I'm Christian, but knowing Hmong people, they go to any funeral. Okay, so everyone was sitting in the chapel, chatting since shaman funerals don't have service like Christian funerals. I got hungry and decided to go get something to eat in the kitchen. There were also 2 old ladies in there with me. We'll name them Lady 1 and Lady 2. So I was next to Lady 1 getting my food. She was talking to Lady 2 about how she met a guy there just earlier. She was saying that the guy was telling her that he was gonna go home for a bit and he'd come back. She told him to wait because she wanted to go with him. She went to the bathroom, came back, and he was gone. She waited for him. Later, about an hour or 2, I went to go grab something to drink, and she was still there. She asked the man if he wanted to eat, so she grabbed a plate and got food for him. She was laughing and giggling. I turned around to look, and she was looking to her left side, talking to herself. I was thinking to myself, WTF. I kind of had a feeling of something, so I was walking back and forth from the kitchen to the bathroom. I heard the lady talking to Lady 2 again. I pretended to grab something while listening to them. Lady 1 told Lady 2 that she was talking to a dead man this whole time. When she got him food, she told him to eat, but he disappeared in front of her. She was creeped out but continued talking about it. She also said that it felt like he was human. He held her hand and did all these other stuff old couples do when they make out. I was freaked out. I ran to go tell my grandma. We left after I told her. While walking out the front door, Lady 1 was leaving home too. I told my grandma, that's her, the one who was talking to a ghost. My grandma looked at me in a creeped face, and we left home. Story 4. The Orphan and the Unknown Calling. Do not judge my writing. This is a true story of my mother's far cousin when she talked to him on the phone. I heard it, and it was so sad. I decide to share it. Let's name him Pao. I will not mention names. This man's parents died at a young age. He was only 10 when his father died. His brother and sister-in-law hated him so much that they made him stay at the garden for days. One day, he came home to find that his brother burned their father's clothes. He told them to stop, but he won't, and beat his brother. The villagers pitied the boy and cried along, saying his brother was a bad man. His heart was cruel. Then one day, he went to the garden alone and stayed there with the farm animals. It was raining, and he was gardening. He thought, why do others have parents and not me? They get to go to school and have education, but not me. Then from far down the garden, he heard a voice saying, Pau, you said you don't have parents. Come, and I will take you to school. He thought, wah, who is that? I only thought, but it heard me. The voice screamed again, but closer this time. Pao was scared and ran to his farmhouse and locked the door. The voice was closer this time, saying it again. Pao locked the door and covered every hole in the house, using rice bags and wood. He went to sleep. Later, he heard a knock and opened the door. It was an old man. The old man wanted to stay with him because he said it was raining. So Pao let him, but told the old man that he could go to sleep on the bag while Pao slept in the ground with the rice bags around him. No blankets. The old man was frying corn by the stove and told the boy to go to sleep. Later at midnight, he woke up and found the old man gone. He checked everywhere and the door, but it was locked as it is. He was scared, but heard the old man's voice up in the attic saying, Son, I've seen that the others are going to get you, and they wanted you by trying to get you. but I won't let them come, so they can't. Tomorrow morning, I will be leaving, and you go home. When you go home, I will be at the top of the mountain far up high, watching you go. I see you are very poor, and I wanted to protect you. Go home tomorrow." Then the next day, the boy went home and asked a shaman. The shaman said this man was the king of the mountain, and he's been watching this boy for years. He did no harm. So now, when the boy went, he heard the old man saying, "When you are hungry, ask me for an animal, and I will give it to you. Do not shoot them if they do nothing wrong to you. If they do no harm, do not shoot them." From time to time, the boy asked for small animals to eat only. Knowing the old man was watching him, he'll think of the animal, and the old man would give it to him. Story 5. Story about a 90-year-old woman. I work as an in-home caregiver for a 90-year-old lady who lived alone. The way her apartment is set up is you walk in and see the door to her bedroom. To your immediate left is a small open kitchen and a wide living room. To the far left of the kitchen is the bathroom. One night, I was on night duty, and I usually just hang out and take on and off naps. Around 4 a.m., she walked out of her room with her walker. I greeted her and walked with her across the kitchen to the bathroom. While she was in the bathroom, I walked back to the kitchen and washed my hands, and as I turned, I saw her in bed. There was no way she made it there within the span of 15 seconds, and all tucked in. Even if she was running, I'd hear her because she has to pass behind me before making it to her room. But she is 90 years old, and she cannot run. I freaked out and looked at the bathroom. Lights were off, so I went into her room and jokingly said, "Geez, you are fast." But she was dead. I mentally freaked out, grabbed my bag, headed down to the lobby, and called 911. I refused to go back until the medics came, and even then, I refused to look at her. Later, I was told she had died in her sleep several hours earlier. Story 6. Getting chased in my dream. I had this nightmare a couple years ago, but I still recall what exactly happened. The nightmare started off as me as a girl in a tall grass field back in Thailand. I was wandering around looking at the sky all by myself. Then, all of a sudden, I hear someone calling my name. I turned to see who it was, and then I was met with a pose-dab ghost/monster in Hmong clothes. I got scared and started to run in the tall grass field. She chased after me but was flying, running. I eventually tripped over a branch on the ground somewhere in my path. She also fell and grabbed my right leg. She then tried pulling me back the way we came from, but I fought her with all of my might. I kept kicking her to let me go. She wasn't letting go until I kicked her in the face, and she finally let go. I got up and started running again. She continued chasing me, but then I came upon this bridge. I was debating if I wanted to cross it or not. I thought about all of these hung ghost stories I read on this page and decided to wake myself out of the nightmare. It was really scary for me since I've never had anything like that happen to me. Thank you for reading my story. Story 7. Immersed. Sia, the summer roommate. Attention, I am making this story as short as possible, so not all details are explained. The month and year are correct, but the dates may be off by a few days. In April 2017, I was close to finishing my first year of college and was planning to take summer courses. To avoid paying the expensive on-campus housing tuition for the summer, I searched for a place off campus. I found a room that was only $200 a month, cheaper than the normal price in Merced, Sia. Being a broke college student, all I cared was a cheap place to stay. When I checked out the place, there was a couple who was living there, and they told me they just moved in. I will call the couple Salvador and Maria since they are Hispanics. They told me that they were UC Merced alumnus, and one current UCM senior will be sharing the room with me too. The apartment had 2 big bedrooms, and it was fully furnished. It was located in a quiet neighborhood, clean, and gave me a cozy feeling. The place was walkable to the bus stop, which was necessary because I didn't have a car, so I deposited my money right away. 1 month later, the spring semester ended and summer session was about to begin. My roommate Joe, who I hadn't met, messaged me that we will be living together. However, he is doing session B, so he will move in on June 6th. My session starts in May 21 steed, so I moved in earlier than Joe did. Right when I moved in, I paid for my rent to Salvador and Maria. NOTE, just so everyone is on the same page in terms of the people. The apartment was occupied by Salvador, Maria, Joe, and I. After moving in, I was exhausted and went to sleep early. I turned on my fan, over 100 degrees in Merced, closed my door. However, I did not lock it. The next morning, I woke up around 5 a.m. because I felt very hot. I noticed that it was hot because the fan was turned off. I found it weird because I was certain it was turned on before I went to sleep. I did not want to scare myself. I told myself that Salvador and Maria probably entered my room while I was asleep and turned it off to avoid a high electricity bill. As I was awake and lying in bed, the heat was irritating me. I told myself, F it. I don't mind paying more. I locked the door, turned the fan on, and went back to bed. I closed my eyes for about 5 minutes and was still awake. Suddenly, the fan automatically turned off. It sounded like someone pressed the off button. That was weird. Maybe my fan had been used for a year, so it's not working properly, I thought to myself, and tried to not think of anything scary. I forced myself to sleep in the blistering heat. While I was sleeping, I had a dream that ghosts were fighting me, and I couldn't fight back because I was too weak to hold my sword. I woke up around 10 a.m. with severe headaches. As a rising, traditional shaman, I was worried because the dream happened when the sun had already risen. Do you know what the elders always say about dreams in the daylight? It's usually true. I was not scared throughout the day because I was occupied with things to do. As I unpacked and did my readings to prepare for class, I realized the day had already passed. It was 9 p.m. and I was hungry. I had rice, but I did not have any meat to go with it. It was too late to prepare for a dish, so I quickly boiled some meatballs. After the meatballs were ready, I smashed some hung peppers because eating just the meatballs would be too bland, by the way. The peppers are considered extremel, YSPICY to many hung people who've tried it. After I finished making the peppers, the smell was very strong and I could smell it throughout the kitchen. I rapidly ate my food in the living room because it was getting late. The living room was close to Salvador and Maria's room, so the smell was diffused throughout that area. When I was washing my dishes and facing the sink, I heard a noise of someone harshly running to the front door. In the apartment, when you enter the front door, there's a storage room right across, so you'd have to make a right to go to the living room and bedrooms. It sounded like somebody was running for their life. While the water was still running, I turned around and saw Salvador with his body facing the other side. I asked him if he was okay, and he quietly turned around to me with a serious face as he was catching his breath. His face was pale, and his lips were the color of light purple.
He looks so different, and my heart felt like it dropped.
I was scared. Maria ran and asked Salvador if he was okay as he rushed to the storage room to put his head in there. I felt relieved seeing Maria there, but I didn't know how I felt about seeing Salvador's strange look. I cleaned my dishes as quickly as I could. When I was turning over to the other side of the sink to put my dishes in the cabinet, I saw a glance of Salvador using his fingers to write something on the front door. It was strange and suspicious. Was it the peppers that caused Salvador to suffer? What was in that storage room? Why was he writing on a door with his fingers? Why did his lips turn into a color I've never seen in my life? These questions came in mind when I was putting my dishes away. Reader, do you know what they say about peppers? Ghosts are scared of peppers. I didn't want to tell my parents that I was experiencing weird things because I just moved in. Of course, they would scold me by saying I wasted my deposit and rent money if I moved out. Despite all the strange things that happened, I told myself to be strong because I did not want to be scolded by my parents. I went to sleep and woke up around 10 a.m. on the next day with a similar dream. My headaches were getting worse. It felt like someone was stabbing my brains. I'd never experienced this before. I went to pee and spit in the toilet as I cursed at the ghosts in my dreams. I verbally called my spiritual guides to cut any monsters into 3 pieces if they didn't stop bothering me. I am a rising shaman, and these words were said without using any incenses, but I did whatever I felt would help me. After peeing, I walked out and noticed the dream catchers that were all over the apartment. These dream catchers have always been here, but I did not notice them. It was weird. There were nearly 20 of them in the living room. I'd understand if it was 4 or 5, but 20? Are you serious? I felt like I was blindfolded that I did not notice how many there were. I also saw that everything was a representation of an owl. Everything. The couches had pictures of owls. The furniture and decorations were all owls. The soap holders and tables had pictures of owls. The dishes had pictures of owls. Literally anything in the apartment. I was surprised that I did not see any of it within the past 2 days I moved in. It was a strange feeling, because I knew the decorations were there, but I still didn't know it was there simultaneously. It's so strange, right? Again, I felt blindfolded. Do you know what owls represent? It is often perceived as a death symbol. I swiftly went to my room and called my mom to see if they noticed anything when they were helping me move in. She asked me why, and I told her everything I encountered. She told me that she noticed Salvador's face was a bit strange compared to a normal human. I sought for clarifications, and she explained that Salvador wasn't ugly, but he just gave her a vibe that intimidated her. My mom told me to not worry and said I was probably overthinking. I knew she was worried, but didn't want to freak me out because she asked me to cut my joss papers, aka a spirit paper or money paper. As a rising shaman, I always carried joss papers because I would jump non-stop if I hadn't gone home and practiced for a while. I colored the papers in the 3 colors that a well-known shaman once advised me. I didn't want to put it outside of the front door or the door to my room because I was scared Salvador and Maria would ask. Instead, I taped it on the inside of the door to my room. This means that I could see the papers when I'm on the bed because it's facing me. At night, I slept peacefully and did not have any bad dreams or headaches. Things changed when Joe moved in, though. My summer courses started, and my days were mainly studying and watching movies to pass time. With the joss papers, I stopped having bad dreams and slept peacefully for 2 weeks. When the days passed by, my roommate, Joe, moved in. He was a nice guy, and we got along well. Joe did not have class on Thursday and would leave in the middle of the morning on Thursday to his hometown. At first, I didn't find it weird, but after 4 times, I thought it was abnormal. I asked myself, why so early in the middle of the night? Every time Joe left, the bad dreams and headaches came back. Regardless of what happened, I told myself I would live through the summer. I did not want to disappoint my parents. It was a wrong choice. One weekend, when Joe was gone, I was doing my dishes around 7 p.m. Salvador was in the living room. I had a small conversation with him as I was doing the dishes, but we ran out of things to talk about. A minute later, when I was putting the dishes away, I turned around and saw a cat at where he was sitting. A black cat. Its head was facing to the curtain. And no, I was not overthinking. I turned around again and saw Salvador facing in the same direction as the cat. Do you know what the Hom people say about cats? They're either kings/queens or witches. I got very scared. The place was definitely not safe to live in. My heart was throbbing as I quietly walked to my room to avoid Salvador noticing. It was the scariest moment in my life. Sweat was falling all over my body. I was shivering. I knew I needed to go stay somewhere for the night. I messaged a friend on Facebook that I needed a place to stay for the night. I did not tell him anything. He told me to go around 10 p.m. because that was when he was off work. He lived in a big apartment complex, so it was hard for the Uber driver to drop me off directly at his address. I went to his party once, but it was at night, so I forgot how to get there. He suggested to meet at the office building. The haunted place followed me to my friend's apartment. Right when the driver got to the office, I saw a woman in a white gown standing in front of my friend. I knew he had really bad vision, so I thought he didn't see that lady. My heart dropped as I questioned her presence. I asked myself, what is happening to my life? The elders always say that when you are walking and see a ghost, you have to walk in the same direction to pass it. I was scared, but I walked right by that lady. I didn't look at the lady because I was exceedingly frightened, but her white gown was so bright that it stood out. I went with my friend to his place and slept peacefully there. I asked to sleep for 2 more days and told him the situation. He told me I could move in and stay in the living room, but I refused because I didn't want to be a burden to his roommates. That lady in the white gown continued to seek for me. I went back to stay at the scary place. I thought it was too complicated to move around. After 2 days of going back, the dreams and headaches were getting worse. So I finally made the decision to move to my friend's place. When I moved in with him, he told me that the Asian lady in the white gown came knocking at their door during nighttime to look for her child. My friend and his roommates were having a party with a lot of people, so they were not scared to open the door for us. She was endlessly crying and demanded that she must find her child. She was strange, and we have never seen her around before, he said. Right at that moment, I knew she was following me from the apartment. I cut the joss papers and put them on the front door of my friend's place. Once again, the papers protected me. After moving to his place, I stopped having bad dreams and headaches. 3 weeks later, I went out to bike by myself. NOTES. I forgot to mention that my friend's place is not too far from the haunted apartment. One day, when I was biking, a crow attacked me. No matter how much direction I changed, it kept following me. It followed me for about 10 minutes. It was purposely chasing and leading me to the direction of the apartment where Salvador and Maria lived. I got so scared and realized it had to do with that apartment. Luckily, I was wearing my Buddha necklace. If you're MTT, you'd understand the power of the Luang Pu's rock. I stopped biking and turned to the crow while I was holding the necklace against it. I called Luang Pu and wife, along with my ancestors, for help. As soon as the crow saw the necklace, it weakly fell on the ground. I biked as fast as I could and turned around to watch what the crow was doing. Once it got up, it suddenly flew away to the opposite direction. I was paranoid and went back to my friend's place. I stayed in the whole summer without going out. It ended. After the summer experience, I got very sick, and my parents asked a shaman to perform a ceremony for me. The shaman said my housemates were not humans. I was lucky to be alive because my spiritual guides protected me. The shaman said that the ghost was not careful, and that was why I saw his true form of a cat. He confirmed that the ghost sent the lady in the white gown and crow to find me, but my tools I carried were too strong to be defeated. ENOTEs. The tools were the Buddha necklace and black/white/red strings. I was recommended to not bring up their names. Out of curiosity, I Googled their names. Salvador's real name came out of Google and showed that he was a former UC Merced student who passed away a few years ago. I was not living with humans. I was living with ghosts. It was a scary experience, and I hope no one encounters this situation. Choose your roommates wisely before you move in with them. Do not live with people with no social media. Do not live in a cheap place. Take care of your health, and do not let the evil spirits take your beautiful souls. If you're a Christian, carry a cross necklace. If you're shamanism, carry joss papers and wear black/white/red strings. Story 8. Hide and seek in the dark. An uncle of mine told my cousins, siblings, and me this incident that happened to him. We can confirm that it's true because my mother, 2 other uncles, and an auntie were there when this happened, and they told us the same thing. Back in Thailand, my uncle was around the age of 7 at this. My mother was 10. My other uncles were both 12 and 6, and my auntie was 5. My oldest uncle, let's call him H, was the seeker. They were all playing outside at night near the house. As my Uncle H got done counting, he started looking for everyone. My uncle, who was 7, let's call him P, was hiding with someone who he thought was one of his siblings. He held onto the hand of something he thought was also with them. He felt the hand being cold, but didn't think much of it. My uncle described it as if one finger was missing. If it were me, I would have run already and called out to everyone else. As time went on, no one found him. So he then told the thing that it's time to come out to them because they couldn't find them. The thing just stayed quiet, and my uncle tried to pull it to get up, but it wouldn't. It then started giggling. P then got scared, let go of the hand quickly, and started running. Everyone was calling out to him. He ran to them, and he told everyone what happened. They all got scared and ran inside and slept. P then became very sick, and they had to hold a shaman ritual for him to get better. Turns out, it was a little girl who passed away, just wanted to play with them. Everyone then never played hide and seek outside in the dark ever again. Story 9. Nursing Home Adventures. I've got several strange things that's happened during the 10 years I've worked in Alzheimer's units. Let me know if you'd like to hear more, but no rude comments, please. I'm just getting to the point of the stories with less graphic details of how everything is in the units. This building was only open for 2 years by the time strange things started happening. 1. I had a resident that used to be in the Air Force that I took care of for 2 years. He'd spend his days trying to decode our alarms to get out of the unit. Also, crawling on the floor military style, so we wouldn't see him trying to escape. When he was in his room, he'd sit on his love seat that could spin in a full circle, writing down codes to try to get out again. One day, the fire drill went off, and in the midst of the sirens and blinking lights, he ended up having a seizure. So we sent him to the hospital, where he passed away that evening. The following day, us girls were in the chart room when the pull cord to his room went off. We could see the room from where we were. No one went in there. The door was locked until the family could come move his belongings out. I had another CNA go with me to turn the alarm off. When we unlocked the door, his love seat was spinning in full circles, just like he used to do when he was alive. This continued happening for 2 weeks before it finally stopped. The maintenance director couldn't find a reason why the chair and call lights kept going off, especially with the air control to the room was completely turned off. It was just silly to us that he tried relentlessly to get out of the unit during the majority of his stay with us, but his spirit took its time leaving after he passed away. 2. I had a resident that had the late stages of Alzheimer's. The only thing she'd ever say was "my babies." She'd pace around the entire unit in circles all day, putting everything in her mouth that she could get her hands on and digging through drawers, etc. She used to be a homemaker, so she'd help wash dishes, put away groceries, etc. She eventually passed away from the disease. Shortly after she passed, I'd see a short little woman that was her height, with short hair and a white nightgown on at the end of the hall, go in a room, thinking it was a resident that got lost, or trying to find their room. I went down to get her, but no one was there anymore. No one ever came out either. We'd also see her standing by the sink in the dining room, then just disappeared. When we get to the sink, the water would be running as if someone turned it on and just left it. I quit working at that facility, but I went to visit the old residents and new staff about 2 years later. When I asked if they run into any weird things happening there, they told me about the little lady that turned on the water at the sink also. 3. This happened at a building I managed that was 15 years old. I was walking out of a resident's room when I saw a little lady in a red dress in the laundry room, bent over like she was reaching in a hamper. I was wondering why one of the staff left the door unlocked, because it's imperative to keep the residents out. Otherwise, they might think the detergent is juice and try to drink it. Yes, Alzheimer's and dementia patients don't have the ability to know what's safe or not anymore. I stepped up to turn the doorknob, but the door was still locked. So I used my keys, swung the door open, and no one was in there anymore. Just the hamper that was already in there. I got out, locked the door, and checked with the staff to make sure all the residents were accounted for. One of the CNAs came to me and said, "You saw her, didn't you?" I guess I must look like I'd seen a ghost. I asked if she meant the lady in the laundry room, and if so, then what did she look like? The CNA said, "Yeah, I've seen her too. She's wearing a red dress. Every time I see her, she's hunched over the hamper like this, and posed just like the woman I saw." We never could debunk this one as well. Creepy things happen in places that have a history of death. Story 10. The Dancing Lady. I've told this story one too many times. I can't remember everything anymore, because it was really traumatizing, but funny at the same time. I would like to stay ANONYMOUS. I know my sisters will laugh. When they see it BC, a USE, they deada know this is them. To this day, I am still so annoyed at the fact that I wasn't even the problem and got problems for it. Here's a little bit about me. I am a hum daughter. There are shamans in the family. My dad and his siblings were the generation skipped. My siblings and I, however, got it. Some of us, me specifically, a tad bit more. I grew up seeing ghosts, spirits, you name them. I have had many encounters. The earliest memory I have goes back to when I was 2-3 years old. I know specifically so because we were still living in Minnesota in a duplex at the time. There was this particular closet that had green walls inside. In the left corner, right where the door is when you enter, would be a skeleton that sits in there. I don't remember it doing anything, but it would always be there every time my siblings we went in to hide or play. I used to see these things very clearly, but after I got really sick in the 6th grade, things did not seem to be as clear to me anymore. I am now 26 years old. I still sense them and see them, but they are on the opaque side visually most times. I also have dreams that go into the future or warn me of things, and they can be quite vivid. Sometimes I won't know until I am actually already there in that date and time that something will happen, or déjà vu, my dream. For example, I had dreams leading up to my husband getting cancer, and even before his tumor showed up. They showed me where my husband would be sick and how he would get sick. There is more, but I believe it is best to not be shared. We are only a year into my husband's cancer journey, so far as of right now. These dreams came to me a year ahead, on several different nights that led us a year later to see my husband was getting really sick. Sometimes dreams can be like riddles, but a lot of times my dreams are specific and I can't deny them. Why am I not a shaman? Well, my parents did not reach out to other shamans to help guide me, and I was basically left to deal with this gift on my own my entire life. My grandma cannot Wanib, but she does have spiritual gifts. She was the only adult who believed and tried to help me growing up. She sought for help and answers when I would have scary encounters. It wasn't until I got married that very year of this story I am about to share that happened in 2015 that my mother-in-law would perform a ritual for me. She would see what kind of quavnib I had, and when my time would be since we've waited too long. 30, she said. She did not specify on the color cloth, but she said I would be able to heal and go after those who were fertile. I'm still learning as I go, and I honestly am still so clueless. I just listen to what my dreams tell me, and haven't seen much in reality for a few years now. My spirit guides have been bribed and sent away 3 times now within the time frame of my marriage. Some things had happened that on the last 2 bribes were a little over a year apart from each other because a Taxivnib shaman was not fit to help me, as my guides had already warned me when we got to his house for the first step towards to getting a ritual done for me. It was hectic and scary. I had a bad encounter at my parents' farm. I believe that had left something to attach onto me and follow me. As to why I believed it was at my parents' farm was my dream with the 2 girls wearing white maxi dresses standing in the tall grass, looking at me from afar. It just seemed to click, and I was very afraid for that entire year. I already had a man and woman following my husband and me for years, so this was definitely a little more scarier. Anyways, fast forward or backwards from the point of my writing whatnot to it being 2015. I was a 17-year-old junior in high school. It was like any school night, or was it a weekend? I can't recall. I also cannot recall as to why it was just my older 2 sisters and me home. My dad, mom, and grandma had gone out somewhere. My grandma also did not live with us up until I was 15 or 16, so I really had myself only on this gift growing up. This may sound like ancient times, because cell phones were still not accessible for everyone, especially teenagers from a poor family. Unlike teens nowadays using their technology away, we had a TV, one computer, the fatback ones, not a flat screen, in the family room. My older sister's laptop, I think hers was broken at the time or something. She could have got it a year later. My memory isn't in the best shape for this part of my life. And you'll see why. My little brother's iPod, Ifikaik, and then the 2 flip cell phones of my parents. Therefore, we did a lot of other things to pass time without technology. I was waiting for my 2N older sister to finish her shower so I could use the bathroom. She had just argued with my oldest sister, and then they took a stupid break, I guess. My baby sister's hung coin belt was laying in the dining room since we used a part of it to store things. Random of me, but I grabbed it, sat down by the basement door next to the bathroom, pretended to wrap the coin belt on my leg like the leg wraps, and rubbed it against my legs as the coins clashed against each other. Suddenly, a black ball flew across the dining room into our kitchen. I jolted up because we have had bats fly into the house before. I was sure that there may be a bat in the house. I stood still and waited to see if it would come back. It did, and flew right into the living room. These entryways had no doors, so they were standing rectangular entryway shaped that led to the living room, into the dining room, and to the kitchen. Then right back across to the kitchen. It flew after it had just went into the living room. It was a blur. It was so fast that it did look like a black ball. I froze, waited, and did not want to run into it. Then I felt a soft, furry thing run right through my legs. I was so confused. Behind me were the plastic bags for cheese packaging my mom got for free from work and had bagged into another huge clear plastic bag. What ran under my legs reminded me of a cat, and I was terrified of furry animals. Lots of animals in general at the time. This time I slowly made my way towards the living room, to my older sister, because I was scared of whatever was in the house. The kitchen lights were off, and it was now dark outside. You would not be able to see what was in the kitchen besides seeing dark silhouettes. I didn't see anything flying around looking across from the living room entrance where I was standing before entering. Then I went to sit on the couch next to the computer where my oldest sister was at. She was using the computer, not aware of anything. I don't remember if I told her or if I was in shock and needed reassurance of what I saw and felt. I kept thinking to myself, if it did really happen. My 2 and oldest sister came out, and she was standing at the living room entrance, arguing with my oldest sister, yet again. Apparently, they hadn't had enough. She probably thought of more crap to say to the oldest while showering. All of a sudden, a woman appeared behind her, crouching over her, almost able to grab her. I gasped, eyes wide open, pointed my finger, and shouted 2N sister's name. "There is a Poj dab behind you." And she ran so fast to me, cuddled me, and was scared. The woman was smiling with wide-ass lips, cheek to cheek in HMONGFUCLOTHES with wide, large Pagen Taub Hongseon pattern cloth, back sleeve collar piece for the dead y'all. She disappeared. Mind you, my siblings have gotten all this nonsense from me growing up telling them there is something there, while I'm seeing it so they know I see S, but somehow are more afraid than me apparently. Now my oldest sister was frozen in the office chair in front of the computer. She was the oldest, so she is the most calm one out of us. She was standing her ground, stayed calm while observing 2N sister and my behavior, while also looking towards the dining room. I'm crying like waterfall down my cheeks. Forget about the bats. I've never seen a non-living lady in Hmong clothes looking like that in person. My twin sister was gripping onto me, also crying. The lady appeared again farther towards the front door middle area of the dining room, still visible through the dining room and living room entrance. She danced and smiled. She makes eye contact with me, and I F up because yes, now she's fully aware of me, that I could see her. My sisters couldn't. She had been dancing and looking at my older two, until she took a look at me to see that I was the only who could see her. She disappeared after I screamed in terror, telling my sister that she's dancing. I'm crying and yelling out what she is doing, all of it to my sisters. They're scared now, very, because I was terrified. I covered my eyes. I'm shouting and crying. They have never seen me so scared before, even though I have had many encounters. This one sent me spiraling. She came back playing peekaboo, popping on the side of the entrance, and her long hair would follow. She had a schmoo-bleegee green hung dress on its seam because I could see it was not like our plain empdob skirts. She could have been humugdub, but again, I am 17. Things were not super clear anymore. I could definitely see her, but it's not like a clear image of superior high quality. I was aging and was no longer an innocent little kid as the elders would describe children to be able to sense and see things. I also had no shrine for my guides. I wasn't trained and was a mess. She had a black H-moob hung shirt, tucked in quite messily, with hlab sev sashes that drooped down to her feet. Her limbs were huge, swollen, and aged. She looked a little misproportioned, and was not at all that much taller than two-N's sister, who is basically 5'4". The poach dab ghost/monster would then disappear, reappear to dance, peek at us, repeat, and it felt like forever. I cried and cried. My show of fears made me so vulnerable to her. She never made it into the living room for some reason I'll never know. But she laughed and danced away. She spun around and held her skirt on both hands to sway side to side. I don't remember if my oldest sister ran to sit and cuddle with us too during this time. Before I knew it, we sat in tears, traumatized, and my oldest sister was still wrapped in her towel, sniffling besides me, holding onto my arm. My parents and grandma returned at last. I don't remember who opened the door or which door, if one of us did open the door for my parents. We had a door next to the entryway of the dining room to living room that led out to the front porch too, so we had two front doors that got into the house. I can't remember. It was a blur. Talking and writing about it really brings me back to that moment I lived through. Eek. Eventually, my grandma checked on the spiritual side of things to clarify things up and scolded the lady for giving us children a scare. My grandma informed us that she was passing by and heard my sisters arguing. The younger sibling didn't listen to the older sibling, was what the lady admitted to. She came to cheer them up and stop the fight, but realized no one could see her. That was until she caught me, and my fears welcomed her performance. She stayed too long and abused her stay that she snuck in the first place to be in, so she got in trouble, and my grandma sent her away. I have not seen the lady since, but I still remember her dance and her peekaboo game, her wide smile to her hair, her limbs, her clothing. We make jokes now, though. I do because it helps a little. I always joke to my siblings on how can they be that scared when I'm seeing that she. Years later, my sisters, we talk about it again and have some laughs too. They mentioned how we all ran up to my parents, them, or they did, or something about what happened right away upon their return. I don't remember much afterwards. I would cover my wet face and take a look again throughout her stay because I didn't want her near us. I had to make sure she was gone too. This is my first share on Home Ghost Story. I have been reading stories on here for years. I still remember the Grandma Sitter one the most, where the kids played hide and seek, closet, bedroom. The guy said he would return to share a part 2, but never did. I had a grandma encounter too, so I could just imagine. Story 11, Where the Dead Come Back. Back in 2012, my parents visited Laos for the first time in 30 years, and I got to go with them. The most memorable thing was meeting my dad's stepbrother and hearing him tell us a terrifying story. He had married a woman who was not Hmong. She was a Kare, but spoke some Hung and Lao. There was something always weird about this woman, as she would sometimes go out into the dark and speak to someone. When Uncle Wang asked what she was doing, she would say it was her ancestors. They were buried on ancestral grounds, and the place was known to be haunted by spirits. These spirits could wander and communicate with the living. Fast forward a couple years, Auntie Ka got very sick. She had a high fever and told Uncle if she died, to bury her on her ancestral land, to which he agreed. When she finally did die, there was a frown on her face, and Uncle was scared, so instead of burying her where she had wanted, he buried her where his family was. It was a mistake. The first night, there was a foul stench in the house, even though the body was gone. It got so bad, they had to go sleep over his cousin's house. The same night she was buried, Meng heard his chickens clucking loudly. When he went to go check, he saw a strange woman chasing chickens. When she caught them, she would bite their heads off and drink the blood. When Meng shined his flashlight at her, she turned around, and her face was pale white, with blood dripping from her mouth. He was so scared he couldn't move, but there was something familiar about her, and he called out Auntie Ka. She just had a blank stare on her face and ran into the woods. Pang Lo was coming back from his cattle farm. It was dark, and he noticed someone else on the other side of the road. It was a woman, walking with a limp, like she was dragging her leg. He thought she needed help, so he called over, "Hey, Auntie, you need any help?" She didn't answer, so he walked over to get a better look. She smelled really bad, and her face was gray. Peng was so scared he ran back to his farm. News got back to Uncle Wang that his wife wasn't all dead, so he went to check it out. Her grave was empty, so he went to her ancestral burial ground. There, he found a poorly dug-up grave with her body in it, half buried. Her face was gray with blood and feathers. Story 12. The Black Shadow Knows How to Attack. It was late at night. I decided to retreat and head to bed. In my dream, everything felt so surreal. The dream began at my boyfriend's house at the time. We had a bonfire ready to go, and we were all chilling outside. His mom started yelling, saying she needed to fiab bowl, so I ran to the car and got it for her. She asked me to rinse it for her, and so I did. While washing the bowl, I saw my boyfriend had gone downstairs to his room, so I chased after him when I finished. As soon as I got downstairs, it was dark and cold. I called his name, but he did not answer. I proceeded to stop at the end of the stairs to see if he was hiding in the corner to scare/prank me. I reached the bottom of the stairs and saw a shadow. Thinking it was him, I laughed it off and headed toward his bed. As I tried to lay down, the shadow came rushing towards me. Now I knew this was no longer my boyfriend. The energy and force it had on top of me was so strong and scary that I didn't know what to do. I tried screaming for help, but no one heard me. It was a deep and intense fight, trying to get IT off. I eventually fought it off and climbed into bed, but it still didn't leave me alone. I slept next to the wall, and before I knew it, IT was behind me. It kissed me goodnight and wrapped its arms around me. When I woke up, I felt the side of my bed sink in as if someone was laying there. I didn't know whether to scream or run. I didn't go back to sleep that night. Story 13, The Dream. This is an experience of how lucky I am. If they can't come get you in reality, they will come get you in your dream. Lately, I've been having this feeling like someone or something is following me. On an early morning of April 15, 2015, 10 Alaska time, I was driving home from work. I felt like someone was following me, so as I turned onto a curvy road, I looked on my rear mirror to see if any car or anyone was behind me. For some strange reason, I stepped on the gas and hit the curb on the other side of the street, almost hitting the streetlight pole. After that, I felt really empty while driving home. On the way home, I was talking to my BF on the phone. I told him of what happened. He said that my mind was probably playing tricks on me. When I got home, I did my business, then finally went to sit down trying to finish up some assignments. I have all the lights off, except for the desk lamp on. I was reading and trying to do my essay. Then all of a sudden, I felt like someone walked past by my bed. I can feel the gust of wind passing by. Then the desk lamp went out for less than 3 seconds and came back on. I called my BF and told him what just happened to me. I don't feel right at all. I stopped doing what I'm doing, turned off my laptop, and put it away. Without the lamp off that night, I went to sleep, having a weird dream. After I went to sleep, I had this dream. I was walking on a dirt road to our garden. On the way to the garden, I met this handsome man walking past. He offered to help me with our garden. This had been going on for a few months. I don't know his name, or I don't remember asking for his name. We built a relationship, and he promised me that he'll come back in 3 days to marry me. After that day, I stopped going to the garden alone. For some strange reason, I had a twin in my dream. The third day, my twin went to the garden alone. Then the guy came and kidnapped my twin, not knowing that it was not me. My mom told me to go bring her back, and so I did. When I got there, she was crying and trying to pull herself to the ground, so the guy can't take her away. He was holding on to a weird stick and was hitting my twin with the stick. I walked up to her, hugged her, and asked her, "Do you want to marry him?" She replied, "I do, but..." I cut her off and said, "If you want to marry him, then stop making it so hard for him to take you with him." She wiped her tears, got up, and walked away with him. Then they disappeared into the fog. Many days later, I was so sad and cozy-ab. Every day when I walked on the same dirt road, I'll always sing home traditional songs, QV Tixiaj, and cried to myself. One day when I was walking to the garden, there was a devil in black with glowing red eyes standing in the middle of the road. He said that he had been waiting for me for a long time. He saw me hurt enough, and now it was time to come get me. He then slashed me with his weird-looking sword. I knocked out. I woke up laying down by a lake. He was there eating someone. He then said to me, "You finally awake. I have a brother who always wanted to marry you. Now you go home. At 6 p.m., we will come get you." Without a word, I got up and walked away. On the way home, I saw a bunch of people, and they said that they were my cousins, and they're waiting for an eclipse to happen, that it only happens once in a lifetime. We all look up to the sky as there were moons roaming across the sky. Soon it was raining gold. We picked them up and went home. It was 5 p.m., and I started to get ready for them to come pick me up. By 5:30, there was a handsome man coming to me and said, "If this is not what you want, you don't have to go." Then my phone rang, and I woke up. I immediately called my mom and told her my dream. She told me to not worry. My mom said that the first one they took wasn't me, and they give me a chance if I want to go or not. And since I hadn't answered them, it'll be all right. She said that if I did answer them, then there was a possible chance I wouldn't be living till today. Thank you for always supporting the channel and welcoming its videos. Wishing you good health, and remember to subscribe to the channel to achieve 1,000 subscriptions.